はいはいはいはい、どうも皆さん、こんにちは。日曜日ですね。ハロウィンですね。めちゃくちゃ私は、二日酔いです。二日酔いだが、ちょっとポアロをやっていくと。じゃあちょっと待ってね。配信チェックを一旦します。めっちゃ具合悪い。めっちゃ具合が悪いし。悪し。できてるよな、これな。できてるな、きっと。じゃあ、やってみまーす。どこまでやったんだっけ？毎回忘れんだよな。全然覚えてねえわ。充電がなくなると。よいしょっと。さあさあさあさあ。うん。もう終盤ですね、完全に。完璧に終盤。バジェット。そうだそうだ。エリザベスが犯人だっていう風になったんだよね、確かね。エリザベスが犯人でしたっていうことになったんで、何をするのかな。まさかのね、でもエリザベスは怪しいっちゃ怪しいよな、前のとこで。すごいひどい目に遭ってるわけで。どこ行きゃいいの俺。真犯であると。これはいいんだが、サロンとかにでも行きゃいいのかな。7つ目の部屋ってのがさ、未だに見つからんっていうね。図室じゃなくて、さっき、マーゴ。上の階。使用人たちは結託全員ではないけど、レハナさんとかがね、結託してちょっと隠そうとしてるという。誰の部屋だ？捜査の寝室じゃなくて、望遠鏡。誰の部屋だ今。アンジェリンとギデオンでもない。誰の部屋が空いてた感じなの？ここはなんか怪しいよね。なんか隠し扉とかあるんじゃない？ないか。さすがに。さすがにないですか。てか、物置か。物置。物置なんて行ったことあったっけ？あ、スターリング。何やってんの君。
Mr. Starling. Oh, Detective. I was just.
うん。
Please. I eagerly await to hear what reason you give for being in the storage room at this hour.
隠し扉があるんじゃない？ここに
A
隠
butler's
し部屋が。
job is never.
うん。
I am no fool, monsieur. You have spun enough stories this weekend.
分かってんだよ、犯人は。
You don't trust anyone.
And with good reason.
I've been thinking about my time with the family.
また、
I
また
often
そんな
think
こと言う
of
の？
fond memories, but it does not take me to a storage room in the middle of the night.
There are many memories held within these walls. I just wanted to see them again.
うん。
I didn't realize the noise I was making.
Obviously. Were you preoccupied looking for another of the Major's medals?
それは持ってるんですよね、私。
I already explained.
No, monsieur. You attempted to dupe me again into believing one of your stories.
Please, detective. I know you know how it ended up in my possession. I was just trying to get some extra money together to send home. I can't lose this
そんなお
job.
金もらってないの
If
こんな
Lady
大変な
Margaret
仕事
will
してんだよ。
find out,
Theft of a medal would be the very least of your problems.
deceive? I'm sorry that I lied to you about the medal.
Would you care to explain the fake telephone call? It was purely for my benefit, no?
Why would I fake a telephone call?
ダメで
The
すね。
same reason that Mademoiselle Rihanna dressed in the Major's jacket in the snow, to allow not only the guests but me to believe the Major was still alive.
I didn't kill him, detective.
I know, monsieur, but I also know that you helped the one that did to cover their tracks.
It wasn't like that. We were just trying to help. She had no part in it. You never let on. How long have you known?
まさかね、そうだとは思わなかったですが。
Monsieur, I am Detective Hercule Poirot.
で
I
か
only
ですから
show
ね
my。hand when I deem it necessary.
You will be taking her away then.
もちろん、もちの論で
She
すよ
will。stand trial for what she has done.
But you don't know the full story. She is just a servant in this house. If she is arrested, that will be the end for her.
If Mademoiselle was only protecting herself, as you both have claimed, she will surely be found innocent.
正当防衛ってやつですね。正当防衛っていうのもあれ微妙らしいけどね。
The Major's military
Mm.
storage box.
また盗もうとしてたんか。
The one that stored his medals.
Amongst other things, yes.
And those other things are?
I had to protect her. If you found it when searching the study, you would have carted her off then and there.
Whatever it is you have hidden, it will not remain that way for much longer. I need a moment.
ちょっと調べますよ。これが怪しいよな。7人目でしょ。7人目の成人っていう感じだね。会話がつらし。外された成人像と、アーモンデッシュの渋谷があるかもしれな
I
い。
should not be
は
so.
い。うんうん。そうなんですよね。倉庫の中から各渋谷にアクセスできるか、できないか。
Is there
違
something?
うんですか。倉庫の中から各渋谷。
What a
うん
revelation.
うん。確かに、隠し部屋がマジ怪しいよな。オッケー。家具。どこだろうね、あるとしたら。だいたい床下だろきっと。この下にあんだろ ないんすか。このタンスじゃない。あ、跡がついてんね。この。なるほど、なるほど。ここにあんだ。見つけちゃったわ。アーチポリュードいる中にすぐ入っちゃったけど。運用サービスボックス。
Aha.
うん。これはもともと少佐が使ってたものって感じなのが、おーおーおー。運用ナイフ
Huh.
これは本当にアンジェリはそうね、なんか遺言。私は江戸番伝没釈は、健全な精神状態であることを宣言します。遺言上、な影響や強要なく、私の意思を示すものであった以降。お父さんの手紙か。なるね。だけと一緒に。遺言状だ。高価なライター。あ、そうなんだ。こんなもんかな？じゃあ、つながりを見つけていきましょうね。これがね、本当にむずいんですよね。これちょっと消しまして。ナイフかもしれない。これはこれでしょ？あとは、彫刻？急に連絡を取っていた少佐は隠蔽団を作っていた。一人を殺していた。釈はアンジェリに財産を残していた。戦時中の地図。いいんだよな。バランスイトのこのシーン。
Some would say a lucky guess.
陸軍のシンボル、そうね。あ、軍隊のライターが少佐のライターであると。確かに。誰ですかね？タバコを吸う人間って感じですね。1個開けなくていいのか。見つけてしまったよ、隠し扉。
He always had his regiment lighter that he received in the war
そうなんだ。
on his person.
And yet, it was not his regiment emblem that was engraved on it.
My father's.
やっぱそうか、こいつのお父さんね、行ったって言ったからね、戦争に。
Monsieur, you have stashed evidence, manipulated a crime scene, obscured my investigation, and yet it is a lighter that you worry about most.
すごい怒ってて。
If it is my path to end up behind bars for what I have done, so be it. It is Elizabeth that you cannot allow to be locked up without the truth being told.
ルークがなんかあったんかな？ああ、そうね。フロレット。フロレットが1枚噛んでると思ったけど、そういうわけでもないの。表に立つもんね、彼女権力者。なるほど。
Even the secret area that has been created here is not concealed enough to stop Detective Hercule Poirot.
目の前で入ったけどね、今。
The Major was killed by his own knife. The knife that protected his life during the war.
悲しい結末やよ。
It was in his holster when he attacked her. He had hold of her arm. What else was she meant to use to get him off of her? She didn't plan any of it, Detective. She was only defending herself.
なんで襲われようそうになったんだろうね。
She did, and I believe her. You think you knew the Major, but you had no idea. He was a monster and had more secrets than all of us combined.
そうなんだ。
That may be true, but that does not excuse what she has done.
Put yourself in her shoes for a minute. If a man like that had attacked me the way he did Lizzie, I would have done a lot worse to him.
女好きだったのか、意外に。
I need a moment.
本当に殺したのかちょっと怪しくなってきた感じもするけど、殺したんでしょうね。どこだ？あった。アーチボイドね。アーチボイドは少佐がアリザベスを襲ったと主張していると。奥にあったライターはアーチボイドの名を持った。
Come, my little
あ、違うんですか。確かに開けっぱなしになってたよね。ダメが出そう。だ。
Magnifique.
片方から他の何かを回収していた。庭で回収したものか。何かを回収。ナイフでしょ、絶対ね。凶器を手数ね、なるほど、隠しに隠していたと。このおっさんがちょっと怪しくなってきましたね、また。
There is no use lying anymore. When you asked me yesterday about seeing someone out there,
That does not explain what you were doing out there.
when Lizzie took me to the study,
うん。
the knife was still in the Major's chest, and I knew I had to get rid of it. I dropped it out of the window, knowing no one would be going outside. It was fine for the time being, but I couldn't risk it being found when the snow melted.
本当にエリザベスなの
So
か、
you
なんか
collected
嫌だ
it
な
under。the cover of darkness and stowed it away in here where you thought no one would find it.
After your questioning in the pantry, I knew you were onto something, and I couldn't leave it here.
なるほど。
And where did you plan on moving it to?
Honestly, I don't know.
エリザベスを守ろうとしたのが原因となったわけですね。
There is no use. Why what? Why I would risk everything to help
That's right.
Lizzie?
Exactement.
Because she is family.
う
If
ん、
you
なるほ
were
ど
in。that position, you would do the same.
I can assure you, monsieur, that I would not.
Then
Well, she knows
perhaps
that
that
now.
says something about you, detective. I would do anything for her, for any of my staff.
Even if it means crossing the boundaries of the law.
Without question.
うーん。ご婦人たちへの朝のお勤めが終わったら、マート・マーゼリアハンとまたは使用人の宿舎で待っていてくださ
Aye,
いと。
detective. But please, you have to help Lizzie. It was all
意
an
外に
accident.
ポアロって
She
ね、
doesn't deserve to
見
spend
過
the
ご
rest
す
of
こ
her
とが、
days
見過ごすっていうか
behind
見
bars
逃
because
すことあ
that's
るんだよ
bad.
な。
If
結
she
構。
is put behind bars, it is because that is what the courts have decided upon.
Detective, you can't be so cruel.
It is not cruelty, monsieur. It is the law.
デカの時は意外に硬かったりするのかな。あんまり原作でもね、刑事の時ってあんま語られないんですよね。 その後の探偵になってこる。さらにその他のことだけがなんて、はいはい。チョコレートショップと同じくらい。いらん。なぜ殺したかは多分フロレットが反対してるし、あとルークか。ルークは工場のストライキで命を落とした。
I must take a dip.
あ、違う。マダムは後継に、シャクはアンジェリに財産を残していた。ロサ給油に連絡を取っていた。
I must act on.
違うんすか。むずいんですよね。捜査は軍人新規を受け取っていない。
The pieces of the.
ルネストじゃないの。少佐は喉から出るほど探しのいい仕事を欲しがっていただから、これでしょ。
Some would say a lucky guess.
用があったと。
Things are
なるほど
beginning
ね。
to become clearer.
大金の攻撃を、なるほど、なるほど。お金のためにですか。最低だな、あいつな、意外に。アンジェリンが愛してるってちょっと見直したと思ったら。攻撃を命じた。で、ルークが死んだ。なるほど、なるほど。そういうことか。だからエリザベスは。なるほど。誰？それはもう、エリザベスか、レハナ
I
です
should
ね
not。be so.
フロレットもそうだしね。うんうんうんうん。
Order and method.
で、これじゃない。これか？
I cannot see the lot.
入所体。
This will not get me any closer to my.
あと一個がわからん。そことどこ？
Another success.
確かに。そういうことか。愛はね、盲目って言いますからね。いろいろな意味で。恐ろしいもんだわ。これですよ。寝不足投げてればいい。そうだ、寝不足なんだ。
Detective Poirot, I'm glad you're awake.
アンジェリンどうしました？
Bonjour, mademoiselle. It has certainly not been a night of peaceful sleep. There is something that we must discuss.
Please, Detective, I'm not sure I can take any more surprises like last night.
犯人が分か
I'm
ったんで
afraid
すよ。
this may be the most upsetting of them all.
You have found Felix's killer, haven't you?
Yes, of course.
I have. And the guilty party will certainly come as a shock.
Detective, please.
It was Mademoiselle Elizabeth that was behind the Major's death.
まさかのね。
You must be mistaken. Elizabeth could not do such a thing.
I assure you I am not. It is something I spent much of last night deliberating. When you spoke of the telephone lines being out of order, it made me question the conversation I thought I had heard Monsieur Sterling make with the Major before connecting the call to him.
But it hasn't been working all weekend.
そうなんですよ。
Exactement, mademoiselle. That is when I knew I had once again been lied to.
ミス・スターリングとマドモアゼル・レハナのお話を伺いに行く途中で、マドモアゼル・エリザベスにもお会いしました。
She was
すごい顔してたからね。
staff quarters. She has not been well.
I am afraid that was yet another lie, orchestrated to keep her from incriminating herself.
Why would you think that, Detective?
I only managed a few words with her before we were quite
そうなん
abruptly
ですよ。
interrupted by Monsieur Starling.
I must admit, he has a habit of speaking over the other staff.
It was much more than merely disturbing our conversation. It was done with the intention to prevent Mademoiselle saying something that she should not.
決定でいるよな。
So, Elizabeth killed Felix, and then Archibald helped her cover it up?
In its simplest form, oui. I have heard it directly from the horse's mouth.
You have spoken with Elizabeth already?
Not Elizabeth, but Monsieur Starling.
I wasn't. What were you doing in there, Detective?
It was Monsieur Starling that I found in there. I was taken by some surprise to hear anyone awake at that hour.
What on earth was
神
she
経
doing?
過敏だってからね、ポロはね。
He claimed he was merely reminiscing of his time with the family.
You don't believe him?
It did not take long for me to uncover the truth of why he was there and the location of the Major's murder weapon.
Hidden area?
Yes.
A room that held all of the Major's secrets.
I had no idea. Did you discover the reason for his blackmail?
I did. Were you aware he was dishonorably discharged from the army?
Dishonorably? What does that mean?
悪いことしてたんですね。
Yes, Gideon told me about the conversation you had. It is really quite upsetting.
Zachariah was adamant of the Major's cruelty during the war, but the extent was not known until now.
ザカリアはね、ほんとそれはトラウマになるわな。
Men that were friends of Zachariah.
Surely not. He would not do such a thing. They must have been trying to escape.
I am afraid not. They were in fact unarmed.
Oh, detective.
アンジェリーは
It
な、
is the
慕
reason
わ
he
れ
was
てたみたいだから
discharged,
な。
denied his military pension, and I believe the reason he fled England.
うん。
He had been such an important part of my life for so long, but I feel like I hardly knew him.
ミッシュ・スターリングはマドマーゼル・エリザベスは無実だと強く主張しています。
Innocence? You said it was she that killed him.
It was her hand that held the knife, but he was quite insistent it happened in self-defense.
In all of the years I have known her, she has barely even raised her voice. I cannot believe she would do something like that out of malice.
憎しみ
The
で
whole
す
truth
な。
cannot be known until Mademoiselle Elizabeth has told her story.
エリザベスの死を伺う時が来ま
Will
し
you
た。
allow me to be present?
も
I
ちろん
think
で
that is
す
an。excellent idea. I hope your presence will calm her and will perhaps allow her to speak more freely.
Please, detective. I know she has done a terrible thing, but I beg of you to give her the time to explain herself.
そうですね。弁明ぐら
I
い
will
は。
offer Mademoiselle Elizabeth the fair trial that she deserves, as I would with any suspect.
Thank you, Detective Poirot.
Would you bring Mademoiselle Elizabeth to the study where we will not be disturbed?
Of course, I'll find her immediately.
やっぱすごい顔だったな。そういうことだったんだな。さあ、聞きましょうか。犯人に。終盤ですね。
Mademoiselle Elizabeth,
あ、こうすごいもん、
merci
顔
for
が。
joining us.
Miss Angeline said you requested to see me urgently.
We have some serious matters to discuss, and I would like to waste no further time.
Oh, yes, Detective. Still not quite myself.
そうよね。
I was surprised when Monsieur Sterling hurried you to assist Madame Vandenbosch last night.
I should not have avoided my duties for so long. The house does not stop because I'm feeling a little under the weather.
That is true, but you cannot be expected to complete all your tasks if you are not in the right frame of mind.
Honestly, Detective, It was best for me to not sit and wallow anymore.
この週末の捜査では実にいろいろな落とし穴がありました。嘘です
Have you
ね。
been able to uncover who the blackmailer is?
The blackmailer's identity has been established, and they will pay the price for their crimes.
マーゴな。マーゴ。
Wonderful news, Detective. You can put it all behind you now. You must be thrilled.
いえい
I
え。
would not say thrilled, knowing that such a close friend has betrayed us.
Mademoiselle is correct. What I have learned over this weekend is that people are not always as they appear. While they may give an impression of being a friend or ally, they can in fact be something
その
completely
顔が
different.
熱いやつがいるんですよね。
And, what of the Major's killer?
Well, mademoiselle, that is why I have asked you here now.
I'm not quite sure what you want me to say, Detective.
わかんないです
Your
か？
honest opinion is all I ask, and s'il te plaît, do not hold back. No one.
We only spoke when there was something in the house to be done. We did not speak of interests or pastimes.
You knew of his work with Monsieur de
う
Silva.
ん。
I only know what is required of me to know, and that is very little.
But you were aware of his work as security at Monsieur de Silva's factory.
もうね、
I was.
ルークがいたからね。
The factory your beloved Luke worked at before he was cruelly taken from this world.
Yes, Detective. Yes, that is where he spent his last moments. Standing shoulder to shoulder with his fellow workers.
The resulting riots were a terrible tragedy, one that I hope we will not have to see or experience again. Something that could have been avoided had the Major and his team done what was required of them.
金のために
He
ね。
deserved to die that day, not my Luke. Detective, what kind of question is that?
It is a straightforward one.
He...
Mademoiselle, if there is something you wish to tell me, now is that time.
I'm sorry, Detective, I just don't know how to answer it.
Let us consider what we know of the Major. He fronted the militia that attacked the workers at the strike. You were aware of this? You finally had someone to blame for Luke's death. Someone conveniently located in the same house, alone in his study.
絶好の機会です
No,
よ。
Detective. It wasn't like that.
ほ
Tell me what happened with the Major on the evening of his death.
I was only in here trying to prove what I heard Mr. Beckers say. I was going to report him, I swear. Miss Angeline, you believe me, don't you?
I want to. I am still trying to understand it all myself. Why don't you start from the beginning?
I was delivering Miss Angeline's dress to her room when I heard Mr. Beckers arguing with the Major in
う。う
his
ん、あった
study.
ね。
They were ever so loud. I thought the whole house would have been listening to what they were saying.
トライキの話ね。
Mr. Beckers was talking about the factory strikes and how it was the Major's fault. He told him that if he didn't own up to his crimes, he would go to the newspapers.
I cannot imagine the Major would have taken kindly to Monsieur Becker's threat.
確かにな。
He didn't. He called him some rather uncouth names before Mr. Beckers left and went downstairs, and made sure to keep out of sight. After the altercation between the Major and Master Gideon, you went to speak with him outside, and I thought I could look around his study without anyone knowing. I had to know for sure. If it was true, he deserved to be held accountable.
And did you find the proof you were looking for?
わかんないでしょ。
Payment from Mr. De Silva, but there was
あったの？
nothing incriminating about that.
そうだよ
I
ね。
was so nervous. I felt like my heart was beating out of my chest.
And then you saw the blackmail note.
I recognized the writing on the envelope. I couldn't believe it. How could he do such a thing to Angeline? To the family that had taken him in?
うん。
Common sense would determine the Major was another victim of the blackmailer.
If I'd have used common sense, I wouldn't have been snooping around alone in his study in the first place.
皮肉を言われました。
Footsteps in the hall, and before I could move, the Major was standing in front of me, demanding to know why I was going through his belongings without permission. I tried to come up with an excuse, but nothing came out, and when he saw the letter in my hand, it was like Dr. Jekyll turning into Mr. Hyde.
うん。ジキル氏とハイド氏って誰だっけ？
I tried to move around him towards the door, but he hurled something towards me, and it crashed against the wall.
すげえ恐ろしい顔してる。
That would explain the damage to the wall.
ああ、あったね、そういえばね。
I froze. I have never been so scared in all my life. I thought he was going to kill me there and then.
And you thought you would beat him to it.
Oh, Detective, you make it sound as though I had it all planned. He lunged forward and grabbed me by the arm. I tried to push him away, but he was too strong. If only you had seen the look in his eyes, I dared not even scream. I saw the sheath on his belt. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to hurt him, but he wouldn't let go of me.
So you took your opportunity to put an end to it all.
I just wanted to get him off me. I didn't want to hurt him. I reached for it and I jabbed it at him. His grip instantly loosened and I ran straight out the door
話
and
して
didn't
欲し
look
か
back.
っただけって、そんな頭悪いんですか？ナイフ刺したら
You
死
did
ん
not
じゃう
even
でし
look
ょ
to see what state you had left him in.
She had just been attacked, Detective.
Oui, please. Continuez.
ちょっとわがままが過ぎるんじゃないかな。
I ran down to the pantry looking for Rahana. She took one look at me and knew something was wrong.
しょうがないとこもあるだろうけどね。
I explained to her what had happened and she went to find Archie. She said he would know what to do.
アートボルトに乗って。
We went back to the study and he was still lying there, motionless. Archie said that no one would believe me. That if someone like me killed someone like him, I would be sent straight to the gallows. He left the letter so you would find it. He said that if people knew what the Major was really like, then they wouldn't care what happened to him.
うん。
So I am to believe that it was Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna that cleaned the scene and orchestrated a plan that included a fake telephone call and dressing as the Major so that he may be seen.
まあ、この子にそんな頭は回んないだろうね。
I swear I had no idea that is what they had done. Archie just told me to stay out of sight. I am no master criminal.
Then Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna will be charged for obstruction of justice and impeding my investigation.
Please, Detective, they were only trying to help me.
If they wished to help you, they should have brought all of this to my attention immediately instead of committing more illegal acts.
Surely you haven't forgotten what happened with Florette. She was only accused of
確
stealing
か
a
にね。
bracelet. I killed a man.
It is a day I have not forgotten, mademoiselle, even for a moment.
Without your help, I don't stand a chance. Please, Detective Poirot.
そんなこと言われても
you are the only one that
な。
can help me.
Oh, Elizabeth, why didn't you come to me?
I didn't think you would believe me. I felt so guilty. And when it was announced yesterday that he was a victim of the blackmailer, I wanted to tell you everything. I came to
そんな
find
感
you
じしたよ
last night,
ね。
Detective, but Archie stopped me. I'm sorry.
なるへそね。なるほどね。あとどこがいたの？エリザベスは少佐から逃げられず彼を刺した。
Is there something I
なぜに繋がってるでしょ？
cannot see
あれ？
logic in this.
なぜ？文章？あれなんで？なんでからん、そこなんですか？
What a revelation!
うん。確かにね。まあ、しかし、やっちまったもんはもうしょうがないっていうね、感じですが。
Oh, yes, Detective. I don't know where it is.
これはアーチボイルがね、なんかやってました
If。you have been honest with me until now, I ask that you continue.
I'm sorry, I really don't know. Archie dropped it out of the study window and he said he would deal with it. I couldn't bear to touch the thing.
うん。そうだね。
Please, I was only protecting myself. I didn't want to hurt him. He just wouldn't let me go.
Oui, mademoiselle. I know.
大変なことになってきたな。
Mademoiselle tells quite the harrowing story.
I cannot imagine the Major acting in such a way. But Elizabeth could not make up such a story.
After learning what I have about the Major's character this weekend, I would not question the lengths he would go to in order to keep his
確かに
secret
殺され
from me.
た可能性はあるよね。
I know that you share a close bond with Mademoiselle Elizabeth, but you cannot allow your personal feelings to taint your belief of what took place.
She has committed a terrible crime, but she will live with that for the rest of her life. She is not a cold-blooded killer.
If what she says of the Major's attack is true, she acted in self-defense. And in the law's eyes, a crime has not been committed. I will do everything I can to make sure her story is heard and a fair trial is conducted.
なるほどね。
Mademoiselle, it is time I address the house.
ラスト
Are
ラ
you
スト
sure?
トーキングタイムだ。
What will you say? What if they do not listen?
I can assure you, they will.
Elizabeth was right, though. She's just a servant. What if they...
Mademoiselle, when Detective Poirot speaks, they will listen. Would you ask
2本
the
目はいっ
guests
ぱい
to
握ってます
convene
か
in
ら
the
ね。
library?
Of course. And what of the staff?
I have told Monsieur Starling to remain in the staff quarters with the others. When the authorities arrive, they shall be dealt with. You have been of great help to me throughout my investigation, and now that it is over, I have one final request.
You only need to ask.
While I am speaking with the guests in the library, would you watch over Mademoiselle Elizabeth in my room?
You don't think she will try and escape, do you?
In her position, I do not know what she might try, but I trust with you there, any potential ideas of such a thing
可
will
能
be
性はあります
squashed.
よね。ラストかなラストですね、きっとね。
Detective, you have spent more time making us sit and wait for you than
当たり前だよ、ババア。
Madame Van den Bosch, if you think I have spent my time focused on anything besides uncovering the Major's killer, you are sorely mistaken.
I'm
わかり
sure
ました
you
か
will be eager to share your findings with us then.
All in good time, Madame. Firstly, to understand the truth of what has occurred this weekend, one must know the timeline of events that not only preceded the Major's death, but succeeded.
We are all well aware of what happened before, Detective. You can save your breath.
You are only aware of what the guilty parties wanted you to believe, but now I shall apprise you to the true events. The reason for us all being here, you know. The altercation between Monsieur Demire and the Major, you know. The body of Monsieur Hagen was found while we were all sat enjoying a most delicious meal. That you also know. But what was kept from us all was that his body lay on the study floor for far longer than was thought.
It was that servant. She found him.
S'il te plaît, monsieur. It was indeed young Inga that found the Major's body lying lifeless in the study.
So it was her.
Monsieur, I will not allow for any
Monsieur
further
だ、お前。
interruptions. I return to the Major's body. If we are to believe the scene that we were presented with, the Major must have been killed during the first course of our meal, a meal that none of you left, even for a moment. Speaking in the evening, you all confirmed one another's alibis, and although there was doubt in the validity of some, I confirmed that they were indeed all true.
軽い
What
さ
I
はみんな
could
つい
not
たけどね。
understand was how a man came to be found dead, and every guest accounted for at the time of death. That is until I questioned the latter. Monsieur Beckers, I shall now allow you to speak. You saw the Major smoking a cigar in the snow. Is that true?
It is.
False. You saw what you are meant to see. Someone in the Major's coat standing outside, giving the illusion that the Major was still very much alive.
Archibald.
Monsieur da Silva, on the afternoon of the Major's death, do you recall hearing a telephone ring?
Now that you mention it, I have not heard a single ring all weekend.
Correct. The telephone lines have been down for the duration of our stay, meaning the telephone call that was received and promptly directed to the Major's study was yet another act of trickery and deceit. But it did not end there. When I entered the study for the first time, it was obvious someone had already been there and falsified the scene to stage a burglary and clear away important evidence, including the murder weapon. What followed was an investigation that had already been hindered. But even those lengths were not enough to derail me for long.
I
think we have all had enough of your self-praise, Detective. Perhaps you'd like to tell us who killed him now?
Madame, as I'm sure you would expect, it is not as simple as that. What many of you do not know is the discussion that was had between the Major and Monsieur Beckers earlier that day.
What has that got to do with anything? I told you I didn't kill him.
That I know to be true. What you do not know is that it was not only his ears that heard your spoken words.
I hope you are not implying I had something to do with it.
No, madame. There was another. Mademoiselle Elizabeth. You are all aware that the Major was hired by Monsieur de Silva to front the security during the workers' strikes. What very few of you know is that it was the Major's order that instigated the vicious attacks on those unarmed men and resulted in numerous deaths, including Mademoiselle Elizabeth's fiancé, Luc. Monsieur Beckers confronted the Major, declaring that he was to hand himself in. That is what Mademoiselle Elizabeth overheard. Now, knowing the truth, she waited until the Major was away from his study. After he stepped outside following the confrontation with Monsieur Demir's fist, it looked to be the perfect opportunity, or so she thought. The Major returned and found her looking for the proof she required to hand him over to the authorities.
If the maid bumped him off, why hasn't she been arrested?
The events that followed in the study are not those of a cold-blooded murder, but one of a young girl that had no other option but to protect her own life.
Sounds to me, Detective, like you have taken a shine to this young girl and would rather protest her innocence than arrest her for murder.
普通そう感じるよね。
Jeez, this is gonna make for a juicy story.
Mademoiselle, I ask you this. You have seen the Major's anger before, oui?
What if I have?
How do you think he would have reacted if someone was to find proof that he had committed a terrible act, and that if made public, would surely result in his incarceration?
バーゴすげえ楽しそうな顔して。
Exactement.
It is quite the story you have told, Detective, but all I have heard is that Elizabeth overheard a conversation blaming the Major for her fiancé's death, and she murdered him in revenge. A servant.
本当にこいつはしおりに厳しいな。
Feared as he was, she will face the noose.
I am not denying that a man has lost his life, but it is not the crime of murder that you all believe. While the Major did not deserve to die in such a way, it was his actions towards Mademoiselle Elizabeth that drove her to defend herself in any way she could. Mademoiselle Elizabeth will be punished, but we will let the law decide the severity of her punishment.
She has played you like a fiddle, Detective, acting the innocent victim. She will be arrested and hanged for her crime, like every other cold-blooded killer.
Here, here.
Give her what she deserves.
The girl has got to pay for what she's done.
うん。
Those of you that are calling for the hanging of Mademoiselle Elizabeth, have you forgotten the roles you played?
そうで
Your
すよ。
actions have been far from innocent.
お前ら。
Look, detective, I see
おー、
what you're
戦いだ。
doing with this, but it's not going
連戦だ、連戦。
So maybe the strikes were down to De Silva and
多
Becker.
分、債権責任はダーシルバとベッカーさんの責任だ。
mistakes.
うんうん。
Mademoiselle Conrad, if you are so confident
そう
in your
ね。
innocence,
やりましょうか、
perhaps-
おばちゃん。確かに。攻撃的な姿勢。
You don't need to imply it's only me that does. Ask any of my journalists.
まあ、
they'll
記者
say
っ
the
てのは
same.
そういう生き物ですから
Even
ね。
if in the process people are hurt? You knew the situation surrounding the strikes and only sought to swell the anger in people.
そう
and
ね、
create
記事で
further
ね、
chaos.
やめろって言えばよかったのに。おい
Mademoiselle,。you so often have something to say. Now is not
そう
the
だよ、
time
よ
for
く
silence.
おしゃべりしてんだから。
You really are delusional.
Maybe you should just keep your theories and claims to yourself.
関係ないだと
Talking of sacrificing lives, have you forgotten what you have done? Look, it's
Mademoiselle, I do not have time for your excuses.
うん。
Do you wish to state your direct involvement or should I?
ってあげましょうか
it's not. Okay, fine. Yes, the story was
Alright.
going nowhere. There was a deal on the table.
はい、一人
but it
倒
was
し。
going to be done and dusted. Everything you said is true. I wanted the story, the scoop that would have blown the others out of the water. I never
やるんじゃないよ、そんなことね。本当に記者の悪いとこだよな、マジでそういうの。日本の記者もそう
I
だし
didn't。think you had this side in you. I can see now why Angeline asked for you personally. You're not like other cops. It's clear it's the law and doing the right thing through and through with you. If you
We can't just forget what that girl has done. It's not Jackie's fault or any of ours that she decided to do what she did.
Monsieur Beckers, you are the last person I expected to defend Mademoiselle Conrad. We talked only
Yeah.
last night, and correct me if I
セー
am
ブが
wrong,
ついた。
but you have already declared the role you played, to me at least.
Yes, we talked. It's just not fair of you to attack
ジ
Jackie
ャッ
like
キ
that.
ーって。すごい仲いいんだ
In
ね
her。mouth until she succumbs to your plan.
的な問題を公にされるのは嫌かもしれないが、うんうん。あなたは組合のリーダーでありながら、組合の取引にまた無関係の人物に惑わされたんですよね。
Detective, I'm afraid you're misunderstood. It was not my intention for things to escalate as they did. Jackie was documenting everything to do with the strikes. She wanted our story to be heard and wanted to know how I was handling the negotiations.
他の人物になりたかったとこいつ。
And
な
they
れ
were
ねえだ
handled
ろ。
by yourself?
Naturally, if I cannot handle simple negotiations, I am not fit to be in the position I am in. No, it wasn't like that.
This is not a tale that has been created. The facts I speak came directly from your mouth yesterday.
ね
Why is it you cannot admit she exploited your passion and desire for your men in front of the other guests?
Nothing is ever simple, Detective. I'm sure you understand that better than anyone.
そんなことは今関係ないんだよ、お前の。
You called yourself a detective,
ああ、
but
や
you're
ばい。
nothing but a bully. You may try to discredit my name as much as you want, Detective.
You see it as an attempt to slander your name.
Word it however you want, Detective.
All I wanted was the truth, Monsieur Beckers.
I hope you're not implying it was my
やばい
fault, detective.
あいつ落とせなかった。これまずいぞ。
I am implying nothing. I am merely laying out the facts.
これ待って。一回これむずいだ
It。was your hand that fought.
This is outrageous. Do you plan on blaming everyone for doing their jobs?
一人落とせ
I
なかったら。
suppose it makes you feel better about your...
全てを告白したのに脅迫状も立てて意味があって。それに、あの第三者がいない。的な会話さんね。彼が 宅の前で。
It may be a big deal to you, but I am used to workers not being happy with something. And most of the time, that unhappiness is
当
directed
然
at
でし
you.
ょう。経営者になるってことはそういう
When
こと
you're
で
in charge of your own factory, you'll understand. I handle the situation the best I could. If you think otherwise, maybe you have proved us all right that you aren't the great detective you claim to be.
皮肉か。
I'm the next target, am I? You are certainly not making any friends
あれ、
here.
ダメだな。まずい。
We can all see right through you. Whatever you have to say, we have known each other for years, and it will take more than a young,
めっちゃ言うやん。
cocksure detective to waver their support of me.
Monsieur da Silva, you seem to have forgotten our previous conversations.
I recall them just fine, thank you. A police officer trying to manipulate facts to fit his own agenda.
従業員の虐待や民兵を雇って労働者を牽制した件がそうだと、これらの事実は私見たね。
Is that what you
まずい。
accuse us all of something until
わ
we
からん。
feel enough guilt?
The events that led to the Major's murder are not as simple as you have tried to convey.
Apparently,
ダメだ。まずい。これは失敗だな。
Through order and
order? There's no order in beating down who you can.
Monsieur da Silva, you have stood steadfast, and your opinion on
Detective, you would do well not
こい
to.
つもめんどくさいな。こんなったらうまくいったのにな。
I only want those responsible to be held accountable for their actions. Does your position on Mademoiselle Elizabeth's guilt remain the same?
Even after all your attempts, Detective, Felix was still murdered. Self-defense or not, she chose to hide what she had done. But
It was not choice to hide anything, madame. If in her position, I ask, what would you have done? The Major has already furiously
I wouldn't have driven a knife into him, that I can tell you for sure. She is no fool. She intended to kill.
あんたはそのね、位置についたことがないからね。彼女に私の所有項だった。マダマゼル・エリザベスに選択肢ながら理解してもらう。いや、少佐の行動は彼女の対応を生まれたなのね。
Quite presumptuous of you to assume violence is in his nature.
Putting my own feelings towards the Major aside, he was not an honorable man, at least at some time in his life. He must have been for you to allow him in the house for so many years. So, even you confirm he had a history of aggression.
捜査は英国陸軍から不明事態の処分を受けていますね。その理由をご存知ですか？
I'm sure that is none of my business.
The Major shot and killed a number of unarmed prisoners as they were bound and terrified. His actions are unforgivable and should not be defended by anyone.
You judge him so harshly, but I return the question. He had made mistakes. I will not deny that. In those moments,
今のね、マドマゼル・エリザベスだってね、そうでしょ。そういうことだよね。言うだろ。
S'il te plaît, madame. I ask that you consider everything you know of the Major carefully.
My friend has been
一回間違っただけで辛くね、マジで。
I will see to it that your superiors, Elizabeth, will hang for this. There is no
むずすぎ。マジでこれ最後マジでむず。
See you turn on a young girl so cruelly.
Excuse me.
マーゴ。
She may have been the one that held the knife, but look at the monster that stood before her. He bribed, He extorted, he murdered. And yet when he attacks a young girl and she does us
こいつだけ意外に味方な。
I'm sorry, Margot, but I am struggling to understand.
Because that girl does not deserve your judgment. You should be ashamed of yourself. You all should be for allowing this to happen.
Countess, I have talked at length of the Major's death, but not the reason for my... When I last gathered you all together, I spoke of a blackmail ring that was rife in the area, and then of the letter that the Major had
この
received.
ババアも悪だからな。
Mademoiselle Angeline requested my help personally after she received such a letter threatening her family name. She felt I was the only one that could uncover the truth.
Get on with it, detective. Who dared try and extort my family and then have the gall to allow me to welcome them into my home?
If it was not for the honesty of a young servant, I would perhaps still be looking for the
For goodness sake, it was
もう自分で言った。
Margot, how could you?
While it looked as though the Countess was helping the young women at the shelter, she was in fact only finding them positions of employment in wealthy homes. Monsieur da Silva fell victim to her network of moles and was in turn blackmailed. It was quite the prosperous setup you had.
うん。
That cannot be true, Margot.
お金が欲しかっ
that
たで
is
すね。
rich, coming from you.
You are one of my oldest friends.
High and mighty Madame van den Bosch. You think you can do what you wish when you wish it and there will be no repercussions.
うん。
If I do not get a straight answer out of you, I will march you to the police station myself.
I'm surprised it took the Major this long to start living with you. He must have been on the edge for some time.
How
互い
dare
に
you
だ。
speak to me like that?
A home you share with the father of your daughter for so many years, and she still remains none the wiser.
You have no right.
すごい歌ってる。
Maman,
Angeline? Have you heard what she has admitted
さ
to?
っき難しすぎ
She's
た
really
な。
trying to make herself.
is what she says true? Felix, he
ああ、
was my
そういう
father.
話だったね。
That is the secret that the letter was talking about, isn't it? You told me that we had nothing to hide. Detective Poirot, were you aware of this?
Oui, mademoiselle. But it was not my place to repeat.
I don't understand. What about father?
Your mama betrayed the love of a good, honest man and played away behind his back and then kept it hidden for all these years like a lady of the night with
そう
her
なんですよ
clients.
ね。カサンドラのバ
Don't
バア
you。say no more. Angeline, I.
Did Felix know?
This is not an appropriate conversation.
He knew, dear girl. He knew the whole time. It is only dear Edwin that was blind to their deceit.
You will not talk of him like that. You will not talk of him at all.
If I don't,
僕がお前の中で言うの。
you never deserved him. You don't even deserve the memory of him.
マーゴが好きだったのかもね。
There is something that you still have not explained.
What more is there for her to say?
How long were you in love with the Viscount for?
Margot? Is that true?
We were destined to be together. And then you turned up. And I was all but forgotten about.
But you were nothing more than friends.
And you made sure of that, didn't you? From the day you arrived, it was all about what you wanted and what you had to do to get it. You didn't consider Edwin at all. He was just a purse to you.
女の戦いだ。
My husband. And I miss him every day.
キャットファイトだ、キャッ
Did
ト
he
ファイ
left
ター。
to stray?
Both of you, no more.
Please, Angela. Let me explain.
Maman, I do not wish to hear anything else from you.
Not even your own daughter wants to hear your lies anymore. Cassandra van den Bosch, all alone.
How dare you!
にやりとしたね。
While I feel a sense of satisfaction and pride in solving both cases, there is still a part of me that is reluctant to revel in triumph. I am content with the unmasking of
ちょっとミスったよな、マジで。
knowing that she will pay for her crimes.
マジミスっ
Justice
た。
of Mademoiselle Elizabeth that worries
こ
me.
れやり直せないの
I
かな。
stand in a court of law, and I can only hope that they can see she acted in self-defense. I must trust that our legal system and justice
最後
will
難
prevail,
しすぎん？
and a fair sentencing will be given. In protecting her own life, she took the life of another. Perhaps the guilt she must live with is a greater punishment than any sentence she can receive.
でもコンラッドをね、眺めできたのが強い。来たな。電話するところだった。
Testovos was taken from Nemozine House
Hmm.
in cuffs and placed under arrest. Although she initially tried to plead her innocence, Inga, along with a number of other girls that the Countess had found employment for, came forward and made full statements. She was charged with 5 counts of blackmail and extortion and sent to a house of corrections, where she will have a new life to
そんなね、
become
長い期間じゃないでしょね、脅迫ならまだ。アーチボルド。
Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna were also
Hmm,
reprimanded for their participation. While they may not be facing time in
確かに
prison,
ね。
tampering with a crime scene and obstruction of a police investigation are certainly not something that houses and new employers will look positively on.
いやー、エリザベスさんどうなっちゃうかな。
Madame finally became Madame Demire.
Hmm.
Together they took up residence in England, where Monsieur Demire continues to support and fight for fairness and equality in London. I am happy to say that we have remained in contact, and Madame Demire has become a regular correspondent of mine. And the latest joyous news is that
そう
they
です
are
か。
expecting a
よかった
child
ね。
of their own. After Madame Vandenbosch's secret was revealed to the world, her position in the social hierarchy was no more, disappearing in a
確かに。
moment. While she still resides in Belgium, I believe she has had to adapt to a far
謙
more
虚さを
modest
学びなさい、このババアは。
a humbling experience for her, I am sure. Madame Demire has not mentioned her maman in a single letter. After the discovery of her real father and how she had been lied to for so many years, I am not surprised if her departure from Belgium was somewhat an act of
ま
separation
さか
from
できちゃ
her
っ
maman.
た、できちゃった不倫をしてたわけですね。
Mademoiselle Conrad left Nemozine House the same way she entered, confident in herself and audacious in her opinions. Her report of the Major's murder at the house and the surrounding blackmails became one of the most talked about stories of the year.
いやー、これは良かったけどね。
Certain details of her own involvement that did not make it to print, she was really quite complimentary about the detective at the heart of the case. Monsieur da Silva tried to continue in his position as factory owner and business entrepreneur, but after his accounts and business dealings
Don't
were
mind.
investigated following the details of his blackmail being made public in Mademoiselle Conrad's article, his illustrious business empire began to crumble and is now facing an international corporate investigation.
うまいですね。
Monsieur Becker stepped down from his position as union leader,
うん。
accepting that he was no longer fit to represent the workforce that, in his words, he had let down on a scale of unmeasurable proportion.
まあこれ全然
Although
無
he
理だ
is
よ
no
な。
longer the voice of the workers, he continues to support them from behind the scenes. Monsieur Zachariah and his brother made amends, and returning to
あ、よ
his
かった
family
ね。
home, and after sobering up, he was able to find
よかったじゃん、ザカリアさん。
I understand that he is now helping fellow soldiers with
よか
similar
ったよかっ
conditions.
た。こいつはかわいそうなやつだからな。
And
ただかわいそうなやつだっ
Mademoiselle
た。
Elizabeth. She stood before a court
ああ、マジで。
and was found guilty of second-degree murder.
うん。
She was sentenced to time in a female correctional house on the outskirts of the city. Alone in a foreign country with no friends or family for support, it will certainly be a hard life for her there. Her mental and physical strength will surely be
ま
tested to their
あ、公
limits.
主刑になんなくてよかっ
She
たよ
could。not go unpunished. Without repercussions, we would become a society of animals.
これ多分、最後だけもしかしたらあれかな。
The death of Elizabeth
エンディング変わるんかな。
has been at the center of everything. had those in positions to help not acted with only themselves in mind, perhaps he would still be alive today, and the Major would have paid the price for his own crimes in the eyes of the law, not at the blade of a knife.
マルチエンディン
The
グなの
blood
か
of
な。
Major Felix Egan will remain on Elizabeth's hands. A stain that wherever she is and whatever she may do, she will never be able to wash clean. However, it will remain as a reminder to not only her, but all of us, of what we as human beings are capable of to protect ourselves. We all have something that may be considered shameful or sinful, and it is how we deal with it that shows our true character. Those involved in the riots, the workers' deaths, and the Major's killing believed themselves to be untouchable. Whether it was from their social standing or their confidence in themselves, they learned that everyone is accountable for their actions. There is no exemption because of the suit you wear or the money in your bank account. There is no price to a man's life. It cannot be bought or traded or discarded. No man is better than another, including Detective Hercule Poirot.
Okay. 終わりましたね。缶です。難かったなマジで。ちょっとね、これ日本語がちょっとおかしいってのもあるし、ちょいとむずいな。こりゃ。最後マルチエンディングなのかなっていう感じが気になるところですが。はい。じゃあ皆さんお疲れ様でした。まあ普通におもろかったなとは思います。でちょっとパニックがいるゲームかなっていうのは思いましたね。よければ皆さんも面白いと思った方、買っていただければね、嬉しいです。では皆さんお疲れ様でした。